I think a lot of people who demonstrate narcissistic tendencies, who demonstrate that kind of behavior, they tend not to get their rude awakenings. They do see the repercussions of their action, but they tend not to be able to connect the dots on those. They tend not to realize that they are the cause of their own sabotage, or they are the cause of their own failure. They tend not to see that. And I'm at least lucky enough to be able to say that at least I was able to see that I was the cause of the failures that I was experiencing. Now, without being self-aggrandizing, not to blow my own trumpet, but basically, in the last several months that I've been running the studio, if there's one thing that's been common with the people that I've been working with, so obviously I have a team, I have video editors, I have thumbnail editors, I have people that are working in different aspects, helping me run this studio and getting these videos published, right? And they're all freelancers. But if there's one thing that's been common with all of those is that they have voluntarily, without my asking, without my even entertaining the idea or the subject, they've volunteered to me information to say, you're the best client that we've worked with, or one of the best that we've worked with. It's really enjoyable to work with you. It's a lot of fun to work with you. And I've been thinking about this because it's been happening to me quite a bit over the last few months. And of course, it's not a complaint. It's very pleasant. It's very nice. But I've been thinking about what has been leading to this, because it's not actually been my focus. So that's not to say that I've not wanted anybody that I'm working with, anybody that I'm paying to do the work with me, that I don't want them to have a good experience with me. But it's not been my priority. My priority has obviously been getting the videos recorded, getting them published, making sure the studio works, making sure this is going places that it needs to go, right? So it's been an interesting result that each time, every person that I've worked with, no matter in what capacity, whether they're doing some artwork, whether they're doing some video editing, whether they're doing sound work, or whatever capacity that they're working with me in, and it's not necessarily just creative work as well, they've all said to me that they've really enjoyed working with me, and they've made it very clear that this experience has been far better than working with other clients that they've had or working with other people. And they've all wanted to know what it is that I do, why is it that I'm in this situation, how am I able to create a good experience for them, obviously create some intrigue for them as well. So I've been thinking about why has this been happening, and what lesson can be shared from this. And the main conclusion that I drew from all of this was that my entire life, I've actually been surrounded by narcissists. Now, people that know me know that I don't really like that word, because it kind of takes away from the understanding of what is the nafs, what is the heart, what is the ruh, what is the nafs, because really this is all nafs. So when you start applying these kind of labels, it can become a bit problematic because it kind of takes away from the actual reality of the situation. But because this term is being used a lot more now, and people do at least understand what this term is, it's useful to use the term. And for me, in my formative years when it came to adulthood, and in my formative years when it came to business, the one thing that I was surrounded with constantly was narcissists, right? And you would think that that would be a disadvantage, that if you are surrounded by narcissists, then you are going to end up modeling their behavior, you're going to end up behaving like them. And that was true in the beginning, believe it or not. It was actually true. In my mid-20s, when I was running my first set of businesses, I was behaving in a very narcissistic way as well. But I started to see the repercussions of all of that. I started to see how this was actually causing damage to me, and how it was causing damage to others around me. And then I also saw the people whose behavior I was modeling, I could actually see how they were creating problems as well. They were setting up people up for failure. Anybody that they're working with, whether it was a supplier, whether it was a customer, whether it was a team member, they were setting them up for failure, and then they were also causing the failures as well afterwards. And just that whole behavior made me realize that this is everything that is not to do. And I think it's become so subconscious for me now, because I saw it in such extreme ways, and because I saw it so often, that it's actually become a habit for me to actually act consciously, not do those things. I think a lot of what is now shared in terms of sage business advice and information and wisdom, those kind of things, especially on social media, a lot of that is about what to do. But I think a lot of what not to do doesn't get covered anymore. And for me, I now see those experiences, those formative experiences, as basically the polishing of the heart. And there's this famous quote as well by Rumi. I don't know how true or accurate the quote is. I don't know if it actually belongs to him and if he actually said that. But it does get peddled around a lot, which is, how will your heart become polished without it getting a rub? As in, it's when it's rubbed, it becomes polished. And I really see my formative experiences in that way, that, there was this constant rubbing, there was this constant agitation that led to me realizing that that's not the way how I should be behaving, because I was being rubbed constantly. You know how people say in the UK a lot, being rubbed the wrong way. The underlying lesson in all of this, what I'm really trying to share and what I'm really trying to communicate, is not all discomfort is bad. A lot of discomfort can actually be good for us, because it can actually be polishing us. People who have not had that discomfort don't get the advantage, the benefit of that rubbing, the benefit of that polishing, and then you don't get the polish that you're looking for, to the point where it just becomes a natural thing for you. I actually find working with team members and with other people, it's very natural for me now. It might not have been 10, 15, 20 years ago, but because I went through that discomfort so long, so often, so regularly, so frequently, me changing my own behavior and the way that I interact with people has now become a very natural habit for me. And I think I don't even notice it to myself that much as other people notice it, because of the contrast. So clearly other people out there, when they're interacting with these people, with these suppliers, with these freelancers, with other team members, they're still behaving in narcissistic ways. And so when somebody like me comes along, they can see the contrast in that. But again, just to be very clear, I'm not trying to be self-aggrandizing about this. I'm not trying to say, hey, I've got this all figured out and I'm the best guy that anybody could ever work with. All I'm saying is that I can see that the reason why these people are having a nicer experience is just because I seem to have been through a lot more extreme polishing, and therefore it's basically rubbed my nafs is what it's done. It's like constantly broken it down, constantly broken it down, constantly broken it down. I think a lot of people who demonstrate narcissistic tendencies, who demonstrate that kind of behavior, they tend not to get their rude awakenings.
Before we continue on this video, I just want to invite you to my Discord community. Look, the world has changed, and it's changing still. And on my Discord, which is a simple mobile app that you can use, you can stay in touch with other like-minded people like me who are staying informed of the things that are happening around the world that are going to affect our daily lives very, very soon. So come and join me on my Discord community, and let's grow together and let's navigate this changing world order together.
They do see the repercussions of their action, but they tend not to be able to connect the dots on those. They tend not to realize that they are the cause of their own sabotage, or they are the cause of their own failure. They tend not to see that. And I'm at least lucky enough to be able to say that at least I was able to see that I was the cause of the failures that I was experiencing in my relationship breakdowns, in people not wanting to work with me or not come near me. I'm due a lot of apologies to quite a few people, actually. I think you can be forgiven for that kind of a behavior in your early 20s. It's never good anyway in a society where even 20-year-olds are behaving in a narcissistic way. It speaks to a lot about society in itself. In the societies that we live in right now, it's not too much of a bad thing if you're kind of tripping over yourself in your 20s, but it's something that we then have to correct in our 30s and our 40s. But if there are people in management positions, leadership positions that are still behaving in this way, then I think that's very, very sad, because they clearly have not had enough discomfort. They're clearly in some sort of bubble, or nobody's been able to rise up and say something to them, or they just haven't had that rude awakening, so to speak. Allah's not lifted their veils, and they can't see that they're actually the cause of their own destruction and all of that. And I think also this is why I have also had a lot of people say to me that you seem to be able to say things to us that nobody else can say to us. And I'm not talking about the freelancers now or the team members, but I'm now talking about like people who have authority over me. When I've been in positions where people have had authority over me, they've said that, nobody's been able to speak to us in this way. Nobody has been able to give us the feedback in this way, and nobody's been able to communicate this to us in this way, the way that you've been able to do it. As in, they've been too afraid to do that. And I think for me, that's because I've had so much discomfort myself. I can kind of pierce through that. And I can see that maybe this person is well-intentioned, but they don't realize the rub that they're causing the other. And somebody needs to point it out to them. And so, I've had that advantage as well. But all I would say ultimately is discomfort is not always a bad thing. And there is wisdom if Allah puts you in a position where you're surrounded by somebody like that. And the more extreme your situation, there probably is more wisdom in that. I think it might sound counterproductive and it might sound ironic to say, but I think almost is a sign that Allah actually loves you more. The more He puts you in a difficult position where there's more discomfort, the more you're surrounded by people who are ice cold towards you, who are blaming you for everything, who are being narcissistic, right? Full of their own nafs, full of their own ego, actually would suggest that Allah loves you more, because He's giving you more of a polish than he is giving somebody else. Like the diamond that you care for more, the gem that you care for more, the car that you care for more, you give it more love, care, due, and attention. You polish it more. You treat it with more kind of like, you really want it to shine more. So I think if you're finding yourself in those situations, there is a part of you that probably has to say, well, I must be pretty lucky if I'm the one that's getting so much of a shining, so much of a polishing. And maybe not necessarily treat it as a punishment, but maybe treat it as Allah is doling out some care and attention on me. I know it's hard to think that way when you're going through it, but it's worth just reframing that in your own mind and just looking at things that way. We do live in a society now where we're not treating the people that we work with very well. If I'm getting this feedback that often, then it really says a lot about how other people are behaving, and it seems to be getting worse over time. So, it is worth some self-reflection, and it is worth looking into, okay, how am I conducting myself? Is somebody opening up to me and telling me that it's been such a pleasure to work with you without just giving me flattery and without just giving me lip service just for the sake of getting more work? But are they genuinely from their heart saying that to me?